Recently, I've been wanting to make a game, specifically a game built without using Scratch, and instead Godot. However, I'm still learning how to use Godot as well as program, because I've done no coding experience prior to using Godot. For my game idea, I was suggested by someone to make a game about Tic-Tac-Toe. When I first heard this, I thought to myself, there's no way anyone, let alone I, could make a game idea based off of Tic-Tac-Toe. But the more I thought about this, the more I started to like the idea of a Tic-Tac-Toe game. First, I'd like to tell you the inspiration for my Tic-Tac-Toe game, as during my first couple of months learning how to use Godot, I stumbled upon a YouTube trailer for a game by the name of Dice-A-Million by Countless Nights, which had reminded me about one of, if not my most favorite game of all time, Balatro, a deck builder that is based around scoring high amounts of points and equipping powerful jokers. And I found that Dice-A-Million, also being a Balatro-like deck builder, except with a dicey twist, was inspiring to me. The whole Balatro-like genre felt sort of good enough for my game, which will be based around Tic-Tac-Toe, as a common aesthetic of Balatro-likes are games based around gambling, but also being based around turning a twist on simple, commonly known games, such as in Luck Be a Landlord, where you play a slot machine, Dungeons and Degenerate Gamblers, where you play blackjack, and in Bingle Bingle, where you spin that spinny thing, along with other notable mentions such as Billionaire, the aforementioned Dice-A-Million, and Solitude. Quick note, no Balatro-like game has ever featured actual monetized gambling. They only ever utilized the aesthetic elements of such gambling games. The cards, the machines, and the dice. All of these games are great, and there is no way I can make anything close to as good as any of them with the current skills that I have. However, I'm still willing to bring my Balatro-inspired Tic-Tac-Toe dream to life. Getting started on the project, I booted up Godot, and then I began to work on the core concept of my game, the center game board, also known as the square. After a couple of days of work, I managed to make placing pieces down onto the square work. Just don't mind the lack of polish so far. I then proceeded to make more pieces instead of just the circles, which would be the crosses, squares, and the triangles. Then I made a destruction shader for the pieces. I find shaders fun to mess around with, so much so that I immediately went back in and changed the shaders that I had built until I felt they were perfect. After all this hard work, the pieces now burn up when they're placed on the board, and space is pressed. However, there's a problem here, as I haven't yet implemented any form of scoring for the player. This is because implementing the scoring I struggled with. Scoring in a Tic-Tac-Toe game is simple. All you need to do is score a 3 in a row, right? Well, I found it a lot harder to implement something so simple as scoring 3s in a row into code, and this is for multiple reasons, as in normal Tic-Tac-Toe, scoring a 3 in a row is game over. The scoring player wins. That's it. But in my game, scoring a 3 in a row is not the end, and the player gets multiple turns to place their pieces down on the board, even if they have a currently scoring hand. This means that the player potentially has multiple combinations of plays that they can trigger within a single round, these being rows, columns, diagonals, and specials, which are a combination of the 3, as well as singles, which are individual pieces that do not make up a combination. All of these combinations need to be animated, and to be animated, each individual piece needs to know what kind of a formation they're a part of, as well as to which part of the sequence they correspond to. All of this information I chose to store inside a separate resource, which I named Stats, because I followed a tutorial. And after all that, along with many hours of me blankly staring into my computer trying to figure out how to make all this work, I finally accomplished it. The square works now. Pieces animate and score whenever space is pressed. However, I'm still not done, as I've noticed that in Balatro, hovering over cards moves them around in a 3D kind of way, and I would like to try and recreate something like this. And it turns out, implementing this wasn't actually that hard to do, as all I did was make a duplicate, pure white version of the above sprite. Then I scaled each sprite separately depending on a variable which is adjusted by the local Y position of the mouse, and whether the mouse is in contact. Then I made the variable wobble whenever the pieces are idle, so that the pieces effectively wobble. I also didn't like the background shader I had at the time, so I later went back in, changed the shaders around again, and now that's it. This is the current state of my game, around 1 month in. As of now, there's not much here, probably because I've so far mostly been focused on the visuals. However, I'm planning on adding my jokers next, as well as the basic UI. Has the progress I've made so far been good? And as for the jokers, should they be the playable pieces themselves, rings, or something else? Any ideas I'm open to suggestion for. Keep in mind though, the game's still very early into development. Anyways, tell me your thoughts down in the comments, and thanks for watching. See ya.